Parshat Yisro, refers to the giving of the Torah, and connect that to a marriage. Because Matan Torah was actually a marriage between Hashem and the Jewish people. Many of the things that are discussed in the Sikha, Rebbe doesn't talk about this, but we could figure out how it would work with a husband and wife. Also with parents and children, teacher and student, not only husband and wife. But before we get to there, I want to just discuss something about the Parsha. Parsha is a very interesting parsha about the building of the Mishkan, Parsha's Truma. And there's a pasuk in Tehillim that you might have noticed or not. I don't know if you noticed it or not. There's a pasuk in chapter 119, Kuf Yotes, which is the largest chapter in Tehillim. It has 176 psukim, goes by the Aleph base. Each letter of the 22 letters of the Aleph base has 8 psukim dedicated to that letter. So there are 8 psukim for Aleph, 8 psukim for Beis, and so on and so forth. In pasuk 130, in the 130th pasuk of the 176, it says the following: Pesach dvarecha yair, your opening word shed light. Even fools can start understanding. Pesach B'Racha Yar, Mavin Pesoyim. Mavin means understand, Pesoyim means are fools. What is the idea of, what does it mean, the beginning, the opening words shed light? What are we talking about? So one of the commentators explains that if you look into the Chumash, there are 5 Chumashim, look at the opening verse, the opening pasuk of each of the 5 Chumashim, you will see that it has a connection to the menorah, different aspects of the menorah. Today's Chitas is about the menorah. And therefore, what this means is the opening verse, the opening pasuk of each of the 5 Chumashim, Yair, sheds light like the menorah. How many psukim, how many words are there in Bereshis? The first pasuk in Bereshis, the very first pasuk in Chumash, how many words? Bereshis, Bara, Elakim, Eis, Hashemayim, Eis, Haaretz, 7. So they say that the 7 words of Bereshis corresponds to the 7 branches of the menorah. And just like in Judaism, the Shabbos is the center of the week. It might be the 7th day, but it's the center. The center of the week. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday are called after Shabbos days, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are called the before Shabbos days. They're all connected somehow. The center of the week, the focal point, the soul of the entire week is Shabbos. Just like a person has a body and a soul, time also has a body and a soul. The group of Zman, the body of time, is 6 days. The soul, the neshama of time, is Shabbos. Shavas vayinofash. It says in Chumash, God rested, and again it says he rested. Vayinofash, nefesh. Shabbos is the nefesh, the soul, the living soul of the whole week, the center of the week. So it's interesting, Bereshis, which talks about the beginning of creation, the 7 days of the week, shed light like the menorah, which has 7 branches. So the first pasuk in Chumash has something to do with the menorah. Shmos, okay, this is a little bit harder. How many words does the first pasuk in Shmos have? Be'ele, Shmos, B'nei Yisrael, Aboim Mitzrayma, good. Eis Yaakov, Ish, Uveso, Bo'u, 11. 11. What part of the menorah does the first pasuk in Shmos represent? The 11 kaftorim. What are kaftorim? They look like bowls, but kaftor means a button. Kaftorim, something that's round. I think it's translated as a bulb. And there were 11 kaftorim on the menorah. What is the connection between Shmos and the kaftor and a button? This I didn't see. I had to make up myself. This is straight from yours truly. A kaftor is a button. What's the focus? What's the purpose of a button? What do buttons accomplish? They close two parts of your clothing and hold it together. What is Shmos all about? What's the highlight of Shmos? Okay, going out of Mitzrayim, receiving the Torah. What did Torah accomplish in the world? Where the spiritual and the physical can join as one, like a button. It's also interesting that Shmos has 11 sedras, 11 different parshas, meaning Shmos, Va'era, Bo, Beshalach, Yisro, Mishpatim. You count them, they're 11. The only one that has 11 is Shmos. Either it's 10 or 12. The rest have either 10 sedras or 12 sedras. Shmos has 11. It's interesting. And thus the 11 kaftorim, the 11 bulbs or buttons are related to the first verse of Shmos, the beginning of Chumash Shmos. It also sheds light because the menorah has something to do with the menorah. So we have the 7 branches. We have the 11 kaftorim. Vayikra. Okay, this is a lot. How many words in Vayikra? Vayikra el Moshe, Vayidaber Hashem Elov Me'ol Moed Lemor. 9. Corresponding to the 9 flowers, prachim. There were 9 prachim, 9 flowers on the menorah, hanging on the menorah. How is that connected to Vayikra? I'm not sure, but perhaps I can say, this I didn't see either, that the word perach means a flower, but it also means something else. How do you say to fly in Hebrew? Paruach, right? Pricha. Pricha means to fly, right? I don't know if you use that in modern Hebrew, but in Hebrew, in Lashon Kodesh, perach means a flower. It also means to fly, to soar upward. Birds fly, and the wings of the bird is how the bird flies. Carbonot. What do we have today that's in place of carbonot? What part of our life takes the place, replaces? Very good. The davening. Davening is associated with what two feelings, two major emotional feelings: ahava, love, and fear. What does the Tanya say about love and fear? They're wings. To cause your mitzvos to soar to heaven. Your mitzvos can be, that's the body of the bird, but the bird needs to fly, needs wings. With ava and yira in our davening, we are able to cause that our mitzvahs and our Torah learning should ascend, should go upward and have an impact up there in the high heavens. And then, of course, bring down blessings down here. It awakens energy from on high. But you need the wings. So Parshas Chumash Vayikra, which is all about karbanot, all about davening, and davening is based on love and fear, which are 2 wings. Maybe that's why parachim, and perach are connected. There's also another possible connection. How many sparks of Kedusha are found in the world that we are working, that we finished the Rebbe said, but throughout history, there are sparks of Kedusha that are embedded in things that are in the material world that we're living in. 288. There's Reish Pei Ches Nitzutz Kedusha in Kabbalah. Perach is also Reish Pei Ches. Perach, Prachim, is 288. Which avoda did the most of elevating the world, of revealing those hidden sparks of Kedusha within the world? Through a korban, sacrifice. When you elevated an animal that was offered and was brought, it was ascended, the animals became a sacrifice for Hashem. So that's synonymous with being mevara, with elevating the sparks of Kedusha. So that would be Vayikra. Bamidbar has how many words? 17. A little bit. It's a long verse. 17 corresponds to the height of the menorah. Now the menorah had a little leg, so it's 18 with that leg. Without the leg, it's 17. Also, the lights. The menorah gave off light. Or, what do we know about Or? Vayar Lakim es ha'or ki tov. Or, light and goodness go together. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu, one of his names was Tuvia. Because when he was born as a baby, his face radiated light. The Gashmias, the room lit up from the holy face of Moshe Rabbeinu. And he was called Tuvia, like Tov. Tov represents something that is bright and radiant and complete. Well, Tov is the Gematria 17. So I guess maybe the lights of the menorah and the 17 words of the first pasuk in Bamidbar relates to the light of the menorah, to the height of the menorah, and to the light of the menorah. But I have no understanding. I don't know how it's connected to the Chumash Bamidbar. What does Bamidbar have to do with light or with the height of 17? That I haven't figured out. The commentaries that I've seen also don't explain it. Devarim. How many psukim, how many words are there in the first pasuk of Devarim? Pesach Dvarecha, the first words, the first verse, 22. Eila Dvarim Atadibra Meshal Kol Yisrael Be'er Yarden Bamidbar Barava Melsul Ben Param, and so it goes long and long. 22 words. 22 goblets. In the menorah, you had 22 goblets. And the Rambam has them hanging downward, upside down. Not like this. I don't want to pour the water out, but the other way, like that. 22 goblets, and the Rebbe has a whole sikha. Why did the Rambam illustrate the goblets upside down, not right side up? And perhaps the Rebbe's answer connects to why 22 letters, 22 words of the first verse in Devarim is related to that goblet idea, the upside down goblet. What is Devarim? How is Devarim different than the first four Chumashim? First four Chumashim, where Moshe is a student of Hashem. He's receiving, he's drinking. Well, I shouldn't say he's drinking. He's being makabel. He's a student. He's absorbed in hearing Hashem. He's not giving over yet. Where does Moshe become the transmitter, the teacher? In Devarim, Mishnah Torah. What are goblets? A becher? Well, the goblet, when it's right side up, it contains. That's like a student containing ideas from a teacher. But when the student is told, now give over, be a mashpia, be a teacher, you turn now the goblet is turned over. Or even when you drink how do you drink? How do you drink from a cup? If you hold a cup like this, you can't drink. You have to pour it down like that, down your mouth. So now the goblet is not just being used to contain, it's used to give. It's giving. You're feeding yourself with water or wine, whatever it is. So maybe that's why the Rambam had the Gevim upside down. You know why? What was the purpose of the menorah? To give light to whom? Was there a need for light in the Mishkan? The Mishkan doesn't need any light. What kind of windows do they have in the Beit HaMikdash, actually? Like this. It was narrow on the inside and wide on the outside. Normally, when you want to bring light into a house, you have it wider on the inside so that the word light can spread. Here was just the opposite. The light of the Mishkan or the Beit HaMikdash was narrow inward and wide outward, because the Mishkan, the Beit HaMikdash, does not need light. It needs to give light. It needs to share. It's a giver of light, not a receiving force of light. Likewise, the menorah's goblets were also that way. They weren't hanging upward, which shows I'm receiving, but rather downward, giving, pouring out. Pouring out is the idea of mashpia. And that's why Chumash Devarim, which is where Moshe is now not a mikabel, but rather a mashpia, he's transmitting. Maybe that's the connection. I haven't seen this anywhere, but this is the connection to the 22 words. But anyways, this is the meaning. Pesach Barecha Yair, the opening words of all your 5 Chumashim, Yair, shine, relate to the menorah which shines. Okay, that's as far as that. I wanted to discuss Mishpatim. Last week I didn't have the schus of teaching here last week because you all went to the OL. So I had a lot to talk about Parshat Mishpatim, but if I talk about Mishpatim, we have no time for the Sikha here. And I really want to finish this incredible Sikha that we started 2 weeks ago, Parshat Yisro, about the giving of the Torah. And we discussed that there's a dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel in 2 different subjects of Matan Torah. Anyone remember? I don't know, the class that was here is not here now.
He said yes and no to the negative.
Okay, very good.
If we saw versus heard, we thought really
Phenomenal. You made my day. Thank you. Okay, so I'll repeat what you just said. I'll start with the second one first. There's a dispute. What did the Jews actually see and what did they actually hear? What did they see with their eyes? What did they hear with their ears? So the pasuk says, "B'chol ha'am ro'im et hakolot." Literally means that the nation saw the thunder, or the sounds, the thunderous sounds. And Rabbi Akiva says, indeed, a miracle happened. Their senses were changed, somehow they were overridden by miracle. And the Jews saw what you normally hear, and they heard what you normally see. They actually heard the lightning and saw the thunder. strange as that is. Rabbi Shmuel says, no, Rabbi Akiva, nothing changed. Everything was just normal. So the Rebbe asked the question, wait a second. Why would Rabbi Akiva say a miracle happened? Does Hashem make miracles for no reason? Plays around with our senses? Why would he do that? Yeah, he doesn't make miracles when we have to save the Jewish people, like from Egypt, from Mitzrayim, 10 Makkos, Kriyas Yamsuf. But what was the significance of making a wild miracle that our senses should be disturbed? Should suddenly see things you normally hear? This is the Rebbe's question. We have a klal. Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ovid Nisa Lemagana. It's Aramaic. Hashem does not make miracles for naught, for no reason. There has to be a reason. He cherishes the laws of nature. He doesn't dismiss the laws of nature just like that, unless there's a reason for it. So the Rebbe explained that Rabbi Akiva says like this. When we say that God made that we should see what we normally hear, you know what that means? Not just the thunder. It means spirituality. Spirituality we normally don't see. We're human beings. We're material, we are a material entity. We are physical human beings, and we don't really relate to spirituality so clearly. We hear about it. We understand maybe what we learn. We hear about it from far. So spirituality, which is something we normally only hear about, Matan Torah lifted the Jewish people away from this world of nature, and our nature changed. We became closer to heaven. We became heavenly beings. We were able to relate to heavenly aspects of God and the world's existence as it is, the way we see it normally, which we normally see today, they only heard about. So they saw spirituality, which you only normally hear about, and they only heard or tried to understand that there actually is a world that God created. They had a hard time believing there's a world. They were so submerged into godliness, they were foreign to the existence of the world. Topsy-turvy, everything changed around. So that's how Rabbi Akiva explains. It wasn't a miracle for no reason. It was a direct consequence of the Torah giving. Torah raised us up, and we became superhumans. We no longer had the limitations of human beings who are much more, with Gashmis is much more relatable than Ruchnis. But now we have a question. What about Rabbi Shmuel? He downplays Matan Torah. What does Rabbi Shmuel say? Nothing changed. He's downplaying. Everything was normal. Well, that was normal before the Torah was given. The Torah didn't accomplish anything. What did it accomplish? That we should retain the normal structure of seeing Gashmis and hearing about Ruchnis? And isn't Rabbi Shmuel downplaying? Seems like he is. Okay, we're going to get to that part of the Sikha. This is the second part of the Sikha, by the way. It's not from the beginning. It's on page 283. But he also mentioned, what's her name again? That there's another machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, and the Rebbe wants to know how they're connected. And they must be connected. What's the other machlokas? When Hashem gave the 10 Commandments, Asar Hadibros, we responded. We didn't just sit back and let him talk. He was asking for feedback. I understand why he likes that. I also like feedback, and I'm not God. He loves feedback. Are you accepting it? After every commandment, they of course acknowledge that they're accepting it. But how do they verbalize their acceptance? There's a machlokas. Rabbi Akiva says that they answered yes for everything. Yes, God, yes, whatever you say, we're here for you. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, yes. Do not murder, yes. Yes doesn't mean we're going to murder. Yes means we accept it. Rabbi Shmuel says no. They answered yes on the positive and no on the negative. What's the lashon of the actual medrash? Hain. Hain means yes. Lav means no. Al hain. On yes, they answered yes. On the no mitzvahs, they answered no. So the Rebbe asked the question, what's the significance of this machlokas? Rabbis have to argue about everything. The bottom line is the Jews accepted it. Who cares how they verbalize their acceptance? Why is there machlokas about this? And how is this machlokas connected to the other machlokas? Okay, so that's what we're up to. And last time we were here, we also mentioned two things that distinguish seeing from hearing. Number one, seeing is believing. When you see something, it's firsthand. And therefore you can't prove me wrong. Even if logic tells me you couldn't have seen it, I said, I saw it, leave me alone. I'm convinced. I saw it with my own eyes. Logic is like a witness, Logic is like a witness testifying it must be true. But sometimes you have counter logic. So what you hear is not so much believing, what you see is believing. That's one difference. How it affects it, what kind of imprint does it make on you? How certain are you after you see something versus after how you hear something? Number two, the object that you see or hear. What kind of object do we see? This. I can't see a sound. I certainly can't see a concept. The less tangible, the less I can see. Seeing sight can only connect to something that's tangible, that you could actually touch with your hands. I can see air. I certainly can see a sound, and I can see, even though sounds are vibrations and you can hear them, but I can't see it. It's not tangible. I certainly can see a concept. Hearing can mean two things: hearing with your ears or hearing with your brain. I hear you. I understand you. The concept can't be seen. Hearing, on the other hand, is only something that's not tangible. I hear a sound, I can hear a concept with my brain. And the Rebbe says these two differences are related. We are human beings. We are living in this world. So what do we see? What do we relate to? Firsthand? Gashmias. We belong to the material world. Therefore, we see Gashmias very clearly. Don't need any proofs. But spirituality, things that are not tangible, that's foreign to us. So the two things are connected. Because we are physical entities, we see Gashmias, and we don't see but only hear Ruchnias. Okay. Now the Rebbe is going to go into now we connect. We need to two things. We need to understand Rabbi Shmuel. Why would he believe that there was no miracle, nothing happened, Matan Torah didn't accomplish anything? And number two, how are these two disputes between, did they see what you normally hear? Did they hear and heard what you normally see or not? How are they connected to how they responded by Matan Torah? Let's see it inside here. If anyone wants to say, it's on page 283, the first page. Anyone wants to say? Go ahead. Number 7, yeah. I'm getting. No, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Back down 4th one also. Sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Good. Anyone else need? No. No one else. If you need another one. Okay. Go ahead.
Rabbi Shmuel, after the fact that the Jews saw what is usually seen and heard what is usually heard, seemingly the prevailing pattern within the nature with
Natural order
represent an elevated state. And how was that an appropriate backdrop for the giving of the Torah and the quintessential state of lawfulness? In resolution, it can be explained that the new development brought about by the giving of the Torah is reflected by the verse Hashem descended on Mount Sinai. In the words of the Midrash, at that time, from that time onward, the higher realms would descend to the lower realms. And Hashem said, I will begin, i.e., Hashem himself initiated the process of drawing down godliness into lower realms. Into our material world, and more specifically into our world as it remains within its natural framework. The ultimate goal is that notwithstanding the materiality of the world, through the Torah here in this world, the Jews will be able to perceive the giver of the Torah, i.e., relate to godliness. According to Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shmuel maintains that at the time of the giving of the Torah, the Jews maintained within the natural framework that governs our world. Nevertheless, within that framework, they experience the ultimate spiritual peace, even though they still saw what is usually seen and heard what is usually heard at the giving of the Torah. Their very sight and hearing was permeated by the truth of Hashem that shone forth into the world so powerfully that they were brought to a complete state of self-nullification vigil. They trembled and stood full of hope.
Okay, nice. What you say? Let's explain this. And we'll talk about how it can be in a marriage also. Rabbi Shmuel says, I think Matan Torah accomplished more than what you said. What you just said is that the Jews soared out of this normal world and became heavenly people. But that wasn't the purpose of the Torah. The Torah is not where Hashem lifted us up and brought us into heaven. He didn't pick us up into Shemayim. He brought Shemayim down on earth. What does Hashem want? Hashem wants that our natural faculties should be retained. Don't destroy it. Leave it as it is. Keep your senses the way you normally are. And yet within that frame, within that limited frame of the human mind, invite God into your life. Introduce Hashem within the frame of being a normal person. Let not there have to be soaring and a removing yourself from this world in order for you to relate to Hashem. Why should Hashem's existence and your normal life clash, conflict? Hashem wants to be invited. He wants to be the visiting team. You're the host. Rather be the host to Hashem than being hosted by Hashem. That's how Rabbi Shmuel views. This is what Matan Torah is all about. Keeping us within the normal framework of a human being, within the structure, the laws of nature governing our life. And yet within that little world, we can see, we can visualize, not visualize to the same extent, but we can have an experience of relating to Hashem within our little world. A husband and wife, for example. Example of a lot of different kinds. It could be teacher, student. Imagine if you have a great marriage of a couple. They love each other. They respect each other. And everything's right. They never make each other feel bad. Everyone is devoted. They're devoted for each other. Here's a little bit different because when it comes to Hashem and the Jewish people, it's sort of like a one-way street. It's us responding to Him. But when it comes to a chas and kala, there's no superior and inferior. There are two halves. So it works both ways. Chassan to the kala to the chassan. So there are two approaches. Rabbi Akiva's approach, Rabbi Shmuel's approach. Rabbi Akiva's approach would be surrender yourself. It's hard to understand. Men will have a hard time understanding women, and women will have a hard time understanding men. Women love to talk and to communicate their problems. So if a woman, I should tell this to the men, not to the women, when women want to share their problem of what's bothering them, the man thinks, her husband thinks, she's telling this for him to solve the problem. She's not sharing her problems with him for him to give a solution. She wants him to hear her problems. She wants him to hear, to show empathy with her, understand what she's going through. She says, "Wow, you really, it must be so hard for you." That's what she wants to hear. And once she hears that, she's happy. She won't talk about it anymore. We mentioned once before, I am so hungry. The guy thinks, okay, what do you want me to make for you? No, I want you to talk about how hungry I am. I want you to listen to me. I need an ear to listen. So there's two ways how they can approach. One way is where each one says, I don't understand. I'm not able to understand how you live your life, but I will put myself aside for you. I will be moiser nefesh. I'll have self-sacrifice for you. Whatever you want, I will abandon my will, my way of thinking for you. Wow, mesiras nefesh. I'll go out of my way. Whatever you say, I'm here for you. I am yours. And they mean it. And both of them can tell the other one means it. Wow. You can go a step further. If you want something, don't even tell me. Hint to me. I'll catch the hint. Or don't even have to hint to me. I will feel what you want and run to do what you want. I am not me. When it comes to you, I lose my identity as an I. I am here for you. And she says the same thing back to him. Pretty good marriage, no? That's Rabbi Akiva's version of a good marriage. Rabbi Shmuel says, no, work on trying to understand each other. Remain with retain your ways of thinking. Let her retain her ways of thinking and try to imagine how she's feeling. And she's try to imagine how he's feeling. There's a book that I shared with some people. 10 mistakes are very smart, 10 stupid things that very smart people do. Very smart husbands and wives. Mistakes they make. Tells a story, just gives an incident there with a woman who their marriage was going very well, but she couldn't tolerate the sight of a roach in her kitchen. And she's caught standing on a chair. She screams at her husband as if, who knows what's happening. A fire broke out. She calls her husband, help, help, help. And he runs. He's in the middle of doing something. He runs. What's wrong? And she said, there's a roach. Please take care of it. He steps on it, kills him, and goes back. He doesn't understand what's the problem. What's so scary about a roach? And then he's going back to Kollel. He's learning right now. He's sitting and learning, and he's very much involved in what he's doing. And it's precious time for him. She calls again. There are two of them. Please come home this minute. Wife says. He comes home and he steps on it and gives even a smile and walks away just to show her out. I'm here for you. But he goes, what is with this woman? She's so weird. How could you be afraid of two roaches? Why do you have to scream like that? I'm in the middle of learning. I'm so strange. It's just so strange. And he could sometimes like let her know that he's not happy with the fact that she bothered him in the middle of learning. And he's not happy about the fact he doesn't understand. He doesn't relate to me. And there are a lot of things in life that women and men feel very differently. And they can get into arguments because of that. Rabbi Shmuel's version of Matan Torah of a relationship is each one to try to retain, in other words, with just you be the man, you be the woman, and try to understand, try to empathize with each other. Try to understand that not everyone feels your world is, you're in the man's world, you're in the woman's world. Try to understand each other. So Rabbi Shmuel says the Jewish people did not lose their senses. They retained their normal senses and yet were able to have a godly experience within the frame of inviting Hashem, introducing Hashem, inviting Hashem within their little world instead of running out of the world. And in other words, it's inviting oneness of Hashem within diversity, within a regular world that's full of nature, seeing Hashem in your life. Or I can say in other words, is it losing yourself in God or finding yourself with Hashem? Are you able to see how Hashem is involved in every detail of your life? And he looks different in every little detail. You see the nuances of godliness connected to every part of your life. Or do you see just God himself? I dismiss my nature. I dismiss all the different parts of my character. They don't exist anymore. They're subsumed in this mesiras nefesh, the self-sacrifice. The Rebbe is going to soon explain why is it Rabbi Akiva chose that derech, Rabbi Shmuel chose that derech. Has to do with their life history, with their background. Rabbi Akiva, as we'll soon see in the Sikha, was from house of converts. He came from, first of all, he himself was far away from beauty, and not he was always frum, but he was never had any connection to Torah learning. He wasted 40 years of his life. He was a wonderful person, but he was, an ignoramus. And he also did not have a very great yichus. Comes from converts. And Rabbi Shmuel was just the opposite. He was a Kohen Gadol. Greatest yichus. We'll soon see how that factors into why they viewed Matan Torah differently. Let's go further. I'm sorry for the interruption. Let's go further. Okay, continue. You want to go further? Oh.
Yeah.
8.
What is the rationale that motivated Rabbi Shmuel to say the ultimate spiritual people achieving the Jews saw was usually seen and heard was usually heard? Conversely, what motivated Rabbi Akiva to say the people's experience by seeing was usually heard and hearing was usually seen? Their positions stem from their personal backgrounds. Rabbi Shmuel was a Kohen, and according to some opinions, a Kohen Gadol, a Kohen naturally and inherently sanctified unto his Hashem. His divine service is carried out according to the pattern of the divine service of tzaddikim. Accordingly, based on that inherent spiritual disposition and the path of divine service, he experiences the ultimate peak of divine service as seeing what is usually seen and hearing what is usually heard, thus drawing down godliness into our world, which remains on its lowly material plane within the structure of the natural order. This is the structured path of divine service carried out by tzaddikim to draw down godliness down to this lowly plane.
Right. Rabbi Shmuel's default state was holiness. He was in a holy world already. He was a tzaddik. And a Kohen Gadol, not just a regular tzaddik, a Kohen Gadol tzaddik. So his lifestyle was spirituality is the norm. What's his job? Share that with the world. The world is not a threat to his existence. On the contrary, he's looking from upward down. When you're on top of a roof, you don't get scared of the things that are down there. They look tiny to you. When you're standing on the Twin Towers and you see a car or even a house, it looks like an ant. Looking upward, everything looks scary. But looking downward, things that are much bigger look tiny. So if you're Rabbi Shmuel, what's your job? Your job is to introduce Hashem into the world. That's why he had this view. I'd rather say that Torah wanted Hashem to be invited within the frame of this world rather than have this world, seek the oneness of Hashem and go out of its normal self. Okay. That's Rabbi Shmuel. Next, 285.
Rabbi Greenberg followed Shvat. He was descended from a converts and began studying Torah only at the age of 40. Therefore, his divine service was characterized by the mode of Shvat, seeking to rise above the world. In that vein, we find throughout his life, Rabbi Akiva had a desire for the serious nefesh to actually sacrifice his life in the sanctification of Hashem's name, as he explained. All my days I have been
Agitated. Bothered.
by the verse. Love Hashem with all your soul, which I interpret as meaning, even if you have your soul taken, I would say to myself, when will I have the opportunity to fulfill this?
He wanted to be a martyr. Now that the opportunity is being afforded me, now that he finally had the schus of being his students were asking, how could you tolerate that? He was saying Shema Yisrael in the middle of being tortured, combed to death, combed the skin to death, the greatest torture. And Rabbi Akiva was asked by his students, how could you say Shema Yisrael now? How could you see Hashem's oneness when this is happening to you? Dark exile, and you see Hashem as one? And Rabbi Akiva answered, all my life, I wanted to have this schus. And throughout my entire life, I wanted to have this incredible schus of being a martyr. You're asking me, why am I, smiling? Or why am I saying Shema Yisrael? This is what I wanted my whole life. Rabbi Akiva was running away, escaping his past, like Baal Tshuva, looking away, break out, put everything aside. Don't focus on details, focus on the oneness of Hashem. Don't introduce oneness of Hashem into diversity. Diversity is dangerous. Break out of diversity. No details. Hashem Echad, one God, and with that oneness, like a vacuum, arise into that vacuum. This is what Rabbi Akiva wanted. And thus, you can understand, what's Rabbi Akiva's version? The Jews saw spirituality. They became superhuman beings. Wow, a human being becomes superhuman, rising above your limits, rising above that which holds you back. Because Rabbi Akiva always had that feeling. Mesiras Nefesh was his raison d'etre, his desire in life. In particular, continue.
The place where a person's will is focused is where he is found in his entirety. Thus, throughout his life, Rabbi Akiva was focused on the Mesiras Nefesh. His character tendency and his understanding of the Jews' response at Sinai were interdependent. Since Rabbi Akiva understood that the ultimate peak of human existence was seeing what's usually heard and hearing what's usually seen, that going entirely beyond the limits of the world, he viewed the ultimate expression of divine service as Mesiras Nefesh, rising entirely above one's own identity and making an unlimited commitment to Hashem.
Perhaps another parallel. What's greater, an open miracle like the miracle of the splitting Kriyas Yamsuf, or the miracle of Purim? Whatever answer you give me, you'll be right. Depends what you mean, but if you ask Rabbi Akiva, the splitting of the Red Sea, wow, breaking out, nature just subsides and gets destroyed. And we see such open miracles. What does the word nes actually mean? Nes means a banner. Something that stands out. Wow, it wows you. Overwhelmed. Where do you get more overwhelmed by? Much more Kriyas Yamsuf. Then when you see miraculous things happening through the laws of nature. But guess what? The Siddur says there's something that a miracle that comes through nature has over an open miracle. There's something superior. A nes that's melubash, b'teva that's embellished and expressed through nature is even greater. Why? What's greater, to destroy your enemy, or to work through or have your enemy also comply with your wishes? What's a greater accomplishment? To be so overpowerful that you just destroy your enemy, but the enemy remained an enemy. You just destroyed him, or to get your enemy to be on your side. The latter is much more much greater. For a miracle to happen through nature, probably like Rabbi Shmuel, for a miracle to happen within the laws of nature is really a greater miracle, because here nature and teva and supernatural have become one, have made peace. There's no longer a conflict between the natural and the supernatural. By Kriyas Yamsuf, the supernatural had to defeat the natural, had to eliminate the laws of nature. But with Purim, within everything looks normal, and abnormal things are happening, miraculous things are happening through nature. So that's exactly, not exactly, but it's a parallel to Rabbi Akiva versus Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel is like the law, is like the nature, like the miracle within nature. Rabbi Akiva is like the open nature. He likes focusing on just on the oneness of Hashem, the unity of Hashem that goes beyond anything that we can imagine in our life. Okay, so page 286. Now we go back to connecting the two machlokesim. How do we connect? I saw what they saw, what you normally hear, i.e., they saw Gashmias and they heard Ruchnias, i.e., Rabbi Akiva. How do you connect that to Rabbi Akiva's view of they answered yes on everything? And Rabbi Shmuel says that they answered yes on the yes mitzvahs and no on the no mitzvahs. How is that connected to Rabbi Shmuel's perspective of what happened by Matan Torah? That everything was natural. So here's the Rebbe is going to explain it. Okay, go ahead. Let's see it inside.
On the basis of
You want, unless you don't want to say. Someone else want to say? Anyone else want to say? Who's this? Okay, go ahead.
On the basis of the above explanations, we can also understand these sages' different interpretations of the Jews' response to the Ten Commandments. In general, there are two dimensions to the mitzvot. A, the factor shared by all mitzvot, their common denominator, that they are all God's commandments.
You know what? Before you just go further, every mitzvah, we say the same beginning. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. That's in every mitzvah. The end is different. Whether it's Alam Tilas Yadayim, or whether it's Hadlik Ner Chanukah, or whether it's putting on tefillin, but the beginning is the same. What does that represent? We're servants of Hashem. Whatever you say, we're here for you. That's what the common denominator of mitzvahs have. Then there's a second factor, B.
The different categories into which mitzvot are placed and the particulars that characterize each one individually. For every mitzvah brings about a unique aspect of refinement in the person carrying out the mitzvah and in the physical entities associated with the performance of every mitzvah individually.
Every mitzvah has an effect on a different part of your body, a different part of your soul, a different part of the world, the object you're doing the mitzvah with. It's like vitamins. For example, eating matzah on Pesach is vitamin E. Vitamin emunah begins with an E. It vitalizes your emunah. There are other mitzvahs that strengthen your simcha, bitachon. There are different great things that we need in our spiritual health. Every mitzvah has a certain quality, a certain amulet that's able to change part of our nature. So whatever, and also it affects different parts of our body, part of our soul, part of our body, and the world abroad as well, based on the object you're doing the mitzvah with. Building a sukkah, taking a lulav, or a shofar, or eating matzah, whatever it is, there's an object of that mitzvah. So this nuance, Hashem is very multifaceted. He's nuanced. So there are two kind of kavanas that you have to have by a mitzvah. Number one, Hashem says, I do. It's irrelevant what he's saying. I don't care if it's a positive mitzvah or a negative mitzvah. I just say, blank check. Yes, God, I'm here for you. I'm not thinking about the diversity of the nuances of all these different mitzvahs, how they are different from each other. Who cares? It's one God, one me, one with you. My entire soul, the oneness of my soul is one with you. I'm not focusing on details. I'm soaring out of my world, out of my little world, and going into your world, Hashem. Or inviting Hashem into the nuances, finding beauty. Wow, Hashem is so colorful. There's so many different kind of mitzvahs. They're so different. All the holidays are so different. And it just makes you feel that Hashem is involved in every little facet of my life. So instead of me soaring upward, we're bringing him downward. We're bringing Hashem into the world that we live in. And we can already see the connection to the other machlokas. Okay.
The two paths of divine service and consequently the two patterns of interpretation expressed by Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva, respectively, are dependent on which of these two dimensions is emphasized. According to Rabbi Yishmael, who maintains that at Sinai the Jews saw what is usually seen and heard what is usually heard, the zenith of man's spiritual endeavors involves drawing upon godliness and having it perceived in the world as it exists with all its specific natural structures. Therefore,
The Jews' fulfillment of mitzvah should emphasize not only the general commitment of Kabbalah's oath, the acceptance of the yoke of the kingdom of heaven, pledging to fulfill God's will without reservation, but primarily a commitment to comprehend and dedicate oneself to accomplishing the particular dimension of refinement associated with each individual mitzvah.
Every mitzvah has a different accomplishment. So think about it. You're putting on tefillin. I know you don't put on tefillin, but when I put on tefillin, it's supposed to be mind over heart. Dedicate your mind, heart, and then action. By the way, the mitzvah of tefillin is connected to this week's parsha. It says that the Kruven on top of the Orim brought down that the male, female, but it also has a connection to the Shel Yad and the Shel Rosh, because it says that B'shachanti b'socham, I will dwell within them. The mem looks like a box, tefillin box, and there are two boxes. The box that goes over here, the box that goes over here on top. It says that the two boxes of tefillin were the equivalent of the two kruvim on the Aron. The Yad is connected to the female quality, and the Shorosh to the male quality. Yad is connected to the heart. Heart is, women are blessed with being heartfelt, being warmer, more emotionally affected, and men are the ones that usually are colder and use their mind. Their mind is what connects them. So we have a connection to tefillin. Anyways, the idea is that every mitzvah has a different quality of how it affects us. A vitamin, as we said before. And we have to, when we put on tefillin, or when you light the Shabbos candle, or whatever you're doing, focus not just on, I'm here for you, Hashem, but what are you accomplishing? What's going on? What is the kavanah you're supposed to have when you light Shabbos candles? I'm not going to go into the kavanah right now, but there is a kavanah you're supposed to have when you light Shabbos candles. In addition to the general kavanah, whatever you say, I'm doing a mitzvah, wow. That there's general and there's particular. Which one is the most important? So Rabbi Akiva says the general one, that you're God's servant. It makes no difference if it's a positive mitzvah or a negative mitzvah. I feel the same way when I'm told do not murder as when I'm told keep Shabbos. Wow, an opportunity to listen to God, to hear him. Hey, yes, yes, yes. To blanket yes for everything. I don't go into details if I'm Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says they saw what you normally hear, they became spiritual people. No one, they were surged into the oneness of Hashem. No diversity. No wonder why. Hey, yes, yes. All the same. Every mitzvah was the same to him. Rabbi Shmuel says, wait a second. Invite Hashem within the framework. Bring Hashem. See the beauty of the multicolored godliness into your life. Therefore, look at a negative commandment with, oh no, wow, that's negative. See the negativity of idol worship, of not eating kosher, of not keeping Shabbos. Look at the positive part of keeping Shabbos, believing in Hashem. So therefore, according to Rabbi Shmuel, every mitzvah is different, positive and negative versus negative. You can't feel the same way. If you feel the same way, you're not here anymore. You're losing track of your individual characteristics. Connect to Hashem with yourself. Find yourself with Hashem. Don't lose yourself in godliness. Bring Hashem into your life instead of divesting and ignoring who you are and becoming something spiritual, losing your natural tendencies. Okay, so this is how Rebbe connects it to Machlokesim. According to Rabbi Shmuel, I'll say it now. According to Rabbi Shmuel, who maintains that at Sinai the Jews saw what is usually seen and heard what is usually heard. This was said already? Yeah, 1 second. So page 287. Okay. Therefore, Rabbi Shmuel maintains that the Jews answered yes to the positive commandments and no to the negative commandments, the negative ones. They focused on the individual dimension of every mitzvah. With regard to the positive mitzvahs, they said yes. They felt the yes, yeah, this is great. The constructive dimension, the good and the loftiness within that mitzvah. What a beautiful mitzvah, Shabbos. What a beautiful mitzvah. Lulav and esrog and the eating of matzah on Pesach and so on and so forth. That the mitzvahs possess. And with regard to the negative mitzvahs, the adverse aspects of the behavior is repudiated by these prohibitions. They felt an abhorrence when they heard, Lo tirtzach, God forbid murder. Oh no. The no is based on their feelings. How different a no mitzvah is from a yes mitzvah. Because we're now we're maintaining our structure of yes and no are very different. We're inviting Hashem within our frame, within our structure. We're not losing ourselves. So that's why Rabbi Shmuel is consistent. Rabbi Akiva, by contrast, maintains that the zenith means the ultimate goal, of man's spiritual endeavors involves rising above the world and its limitations. Accordingly, when fulfilling a mitzvah, the emphasis is not the specific aspects of refinement to which the observance of each particular mitzvah leads, and the effect it brings about within the world. I don't care about the world, I don't care about the details, but on the person's obedience to the Creator, one thing only. There's a Creator, I'm here for him. A feeling that transcends all particular aspects and structures. For this reason, Rabbi Akiva maintains that the Jews answered yes to both the positive and negative commandments. Their primary focus is not on the particular aspects of each mitzvah, but on the general dimension that they are nothing else but God's commands, which is common to all the mitzvahs. He saw the common denominator in every mitzvah, yes or no, negative or positive. Therefore, they did not differentiate between the positive and negative mitzvahs when responding. They responded with one general blank check yes. They answered with the same yes, whether the commandment involved performing an action or observing a prohibition. They agreed to carry out whatever God commanded. I have a question to ask you. So Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel argue about what they answered on the negative commandments. What about the positive commandments? Did they both agree? Nope. Rabbi Shmuel's yes is on the particulars. Yes, Shabbos. Oh, I love Shabbos. Tefillin. Wow. And you focus on how tefillin and Shabbos are different. Rabbi Akiva's yes is yes, God, whatever you say. Different kind of yes. So they're not only arguing on the no, they're arguing on the yes too. Look at footnote 43. On this basis, it can be clarified why Rabbi Akiva also states that the Jews answered yes to the positive. That he agrees with Rabbi Shmuel. Why is he focusing on what he agrees with? He's only coming to argue, so only mention the part you argue with. Seemingly, the fundamental difference between his approach on that of Rabbi Shmuel applies to the response given to the negative commandments. That, according to Rabbi Akiva, the Jews responded even to the negative commandments and the affirmative, and Rabbi Shmuel holds no. But they don't seem to be arguing on the positive, right? Wrong. However, in truth, Rabbi Akiva's understanding of the yes they answered to the positive commandments also differs from Rabbi Shmuel's understanding. According to Rabbi Akiva, the yes does not relate to the individual aspects of the mitzvah, but rather it's an affirmation of one's desire to carry out the general dimension common in all mitzvahs. So even the yes, different type of yes. Was it a general yes or a particular yes? Okay, now that I'm going to go a step further and go a step deeper. Let's skip the next paragraph of page 288 and go to the chapter 10. The Rebbe makes everything, finds every little nuance here and shows that not one single word is out of order over here. What's the exact language of Rabbi Akiva? Al-hain v'al-lav lav. Al-hain v'al-lav hain. My mistake. Al-hain v'al-lav hain. They answered yes on the yes mitzvahs, and they answered hain on the no mitzvahs. He could have said it faster. How about if he would have said like this? They answered yes on the positive and the negative. Why did he repeat the word yes? They answered yes on the positive and they answered yes on the negative. Why two yeses? Just say, they answered yes on the positive and the negative. All one, they bunched them together. One yes for everything. I can't see you. I don't know if you're laughing or smiling or walking. Without my glasses, I can't see very well. Now I can see. You understand what I'm asking? Why is there a repetition of the word yes? If it's all just a blanket yes, and that's what the Rebbe is going to answer here. Yeah.
We need to emphasize this whole servant thing. It's not just, we're not just saying yes to everything, even the things.
Yeah, but that would be all the reason not to repeat the word yes again. It's one general yes for everything. Why repeat it? And the answer is, there's another level of yes to the no. He was able to see the positive within the negative. In other words, it's not just that he was beyond looking at distinctions, at differences. He was able to focus and see the most horrible things that are happening in the world, a positive twist. In fact, when you look at Avodah Zarah, he didn't look down at Avodah Zarah. He said, God created Avodah Zarah so I can denounce it and bring God's oneness into the world in a way I couldn't if it had not been idol worship in this world, I would not be able to appreciate God's oneness. So every negative, he saw the positive within the negative. So it wasn't the same way he viewed. He actually saw another level of positivity within the negative. In addition to being just general yes, he also was able to see through everything. That's what the Rebbe mentions here in this next part of the Sikha. To explain another aspect of Rabbi Akiva's approach of answering yes to both the positive and the negative, by responding yes to the negative commandments, the Jews did more than highlight the common aspect shared by both the positive and negative. They went beyond looking at the common denominator. He says they were able to, on page 289, yeah, they were able to go beyond the fulfillment, the differences, go beyond the the fulfillment of in other words, they were just to fulfill Hashem's will. Beyond this idea of just fulfill Hashem's will, they also brought out the positive dimension contained within the negative commandments. Even in the substances and actions that are negative commandments forbid, that negative commandments forbid, the Jews perceived and felt only the positive, the good and the holiness brought about by observing the negative commandments. The possibility of such perception fits Rabbi Akiva's approach of seeing what is usually heard and hearing what is usually seen. When a person is like Rabbi Akiva, when a person's spiritual state is such, page 290, that he or she hears what is usually seen, you're seeing the world from God's perspective. He perceives the physicality of the world, what is usually seen, with utter detachment due to the distance associated with hearing. Rabbi Akiva viewed the world like God views the world, from Hashem's perspective. Is there anything bad in the world? Anything bad happening? Everything there's good in everything. Hashem does everything for the good. So if you look at the world from God's perspective, Hashem's window, for him, the existence of the world truly has no place. He only hears that it exists because of the proofs the Torah provides. How does he know the world is real, not imagined, and that you're hallucinating? You're not hallucinating, because God said, "Bereshis bara Elokim," God created. It says in the Chumash, the first pasuk, God created the world. When such a person looks at any entity, all he perceives is the connection that entity shares with the Torah and its mitzvot. When such a person encounters something negative, an entity that is in conflict with holiness, even regarding the so severe a negative force as a false deity, something diametrically opposed to the oneness of God, primarily he does not perceive its negative dimensions, the bad, but rather principally he is aware of the positive, the good that can arise. He realizes that this conflicting force makes it possible to carry out God's commandment. You shall not have any other gods. This is the intent of responding yes to the negative. This approach of Rabbi Akiva to factors that appear negative is also reflected in another well-known Talmudic story. Sometime after the destruction of the second temple, the second Beis Hamikdash, Rabbi Akiva and several other sages saw a fox depart from the sight of the Holy of Holies, meaning from the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The other sages wept when they saw this, overcome by sadness, because in the very place of which it is written that anyone who is not a Kohen who approaches shall die, and now fox are running out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, it made them cry. Look what's happening to the holy place. However, Rabbi Akiva was joyful. When they asked him, "Why are you laughing?" he explained to them that witnessing the fulfillment of the prophecy of Uriah regarding the destruction of Jerusalem, of Yerushalayim, and the Beis Hamikdash, that Zion would be plowed like a field, which is one prophecy. This encouraged him, and when I see how Hashem is keeping his promise about destruction so perfectly, so incredibly, that tells me that he's not going to only keep his promise about the good, but he's going to keep it with more than he has to, going beyond the norm. And therefore, he was happy to see, when you see how incredibly dark the Golus is, wow, the darker the Golus is, the greater of a light we're going to see when Mashiach comes. If the Golus wouldn't be as dark, then Mashiach's coming wouldn't be as incredible. So by looking at the darkness, he started smiling. Now I know that when it comes to the actual Geula, it's going to be beyond what we can imagine. It's not going to just be Hashem will bring the Geula and everything will be okay. It'll be much more than everything will be okay. So this is one story with Rabbi Akiva. It's at the end of the tractate Makos. Okay. There's one last thing over here, and I don't have time for it. Well, there's a child version of Rabbi Akiva and a child version of Rabbi Shmuel. Rashi and Chumash seems to connect the two. Rashi learns that the Jews saw what they normally hear, but when it comes to how do they respond, he follows Rabbi Shmuel. They answered yes on the yes and no on the negative. So wait a second, is Rashi in conflict with the Sikh over here? Because the Rebbe just made a connection over here. And Rashi seems to take both sides. He seems to be halfway Rabbi Akiva. They saw what you normally hear, but when it comes to how they responded, he answers like Rabbi Shmuel. They answered yes on the positive and no on the negative. So the Rebbe explains, no, we can really say that Rashi is Rabbi Akiva fan. That Rashi is learning that Rabbi Akiva's derech is right, but a child version of Rabbi Akiva. And let me ask you a question. What's a higher level to relate to spirituality? I mean, you're probably going to you give the wrong answer. What's greater, to be able to see godliness as something certain with obviousness, like how could there be any question about it? Or looking at the world as if the world is, as if you don't even believe, looking at the world as something foreign. In other words, what is more strange, to see Ruchnius or to hear Gashmius? To hear about Gashmius. Which one would you say is a higher madrega? Which one is a higher level of spirituality, where you can see spirituality, or where you hear only about the world? You're so high that the world sounds strange to you.
We talked about it this morning, we made the active choice.
So what's further, what's a higher madrega, to see Ruchnius or to hear about Gashmius? Hear about Gashmius is strange. Gashmius we see. Which one is greater? To hear Gashmius, that's not normal. Who hears about Gashmius? I see it. Hear about Gashmius as if the world really exists. Or the other person that says, Elokus? Of course. It's as easy as me getting up and getting dressed. It's not because I'm used to it. It's so obvious. I feel godly. I see it. Which one of the two is a greater level? They're not the same. Because for a child, it's possible to educate a child to get a feeling of certainty that Hashem exists, to be brought up with a mitzvah, to love a mitzvah like it's without it I can't live, to see Ruchnius like something that's obvious and you can't live without it. But try to tell a child the world is not real. He's a child. He loves his candies. While he loves Torah, he loves his candies too. You can't tell a child, look at at food like as if it's, I really have to eat. I'll do a favor to my body, like Hillel. That body's bothering me. I'll have to give it some food. You expect a child to reach that level? A child in age or a child in Yiddishkeit? No. So Rashi's version of Rabbi Akiva is halfway Rabbi Akiva. To get the child to see Ruchnius as something that is so clear to you that you have no questions whatsoever. Everything is so obvious, so clear to you. That's also not so easy. But that you can train a child to love Hashem and to see Hashem as what else is new. But to see the world as something strange, to look down at the world like it's foreign, it's a child. It wasn't born that long ago. The kid understands his toys. He understands his toys. He understands his food. He enjoys ice cream. He enjoys ice cream, but he also enjoys learning. He enjoys both of them. He enjoys the recess and he enjoys the learning. Then the Rebbe says, perhaps we can say that Rashi is trying to explain Rabbi Shmuel, a childish version of Rabbi Shmuel. What's a greater accomplishment? To introduce God into a world where we see Gashmius as real, or a world where we don't believe in God, so we have questions on godliness. We have things that happen. Why did the Holocaust happen? In a world where we have apicursis, a world where Ruchnius, you believe in God? Prove it to me. That level is dangerous. You don't want to tell a child, introduce a child, ask him all the questions. Why did Hashem make the Holocaust happen? But believe in Hashem. It's dangerous. Don't go that low. You can't introduce Hashem into that level, into that sphere. You can introduce Hashem into a level where Gashmius is normal, but not into a level where Ruchnius is not normal, where God is a question mark. That's too much, too far, going too far. So Rashi can either be a childish version of Rabbi Akiva. Oh, when it comes to hein, lav, again, you want to tell a kid Avodah Zarah? Wonderful Avodah Zarah. We have another way of serving Hashem. No. You want to train a kid how detrimental it is to go to see a church, how detrimental it is to eat not kosher. Treat him. No is no and yes is yes. So Rashi, teaching a child, has that part of Rabbi Shmuel, the hein, lav. When it comes to Ruchnius and Gashmius, the Gashmius is still normal, but Ruchnius is also normal. So we can't introduce, Rabbi Shmuel will agree, you can't invite Hashem into a world where there is question marks whether God exists or not. That's too low of a world. Then the Rebbe says, the last part of the Sikha, when it comes to Mashiach, will have both qualities. We'll be able to have God, the essence of Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, introduced into our little world. There'll be no longer a conflict between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. We will have both together. The Mashiach will come. That's all we have time for. And Rebbe says both of them, each one has a milah. Tzaddik over about Tshuva, Tshuva over about Tzaddik. Yes, Bazeh, Masha, Ein Bazeh. There's this. You can't really choose which one's higher. Men versus women, heart versus brain. There's a milah in both. You got to pick both. You're going to use them as multifaceted. You got to have Rabbi Akiva's syndrome sometimes in your life, and then Rabbi Shmuel. Okay.
Say you could be more lighting candles, there's a general, and then there's a specific.
Yeah. Lighting candles. I
I
gotta go. I'll be. Gonna be throwing me out if I stay longer.
Oh, okay.
Still want to work. I still want to teach it. Time is very important. So another time I'll talk about the specific kavanah of the different mitzvahs, the different vitamins. They vitalize different parts of your soul. Don't forget, matzah is vitamin E. One.
Yeah, thank you.
My mom goes to home. Reason I'm still. That's someone. It was like a weird situation. Because it's like. What? I got the douche. Nice. First of all, congratulations. Oh. Need a whole punch anything? Have a whole punch out for you? Hello.